Hello and welcome to the explanation video for the 1.55 seconds 540 blocks 5x5. I'm not going to be making a showcase video for this, which I think is pretty evident because this is going to be uploaded after the tutorial. So that's just because the animation is literally almost the exact same as the 1.75 one. It literally has the exact same closing animation, and the opening animation is literally just the same thing, but like 2 ticks faster. So yeah, I'll try to go over as much as I can, see if I can somehow make this make sense in some way possible. I have no idea. I'll try my best. Alright, so I'm going to be quickly explaining how the top sequence works. So to get the opening time of 1.55, what we're first going to be doing is one-ticking this top row of pistons right here with a instant extension circuit right up here. It's right there. And we're going to be using this slider right here to chain a 0 tick right there, with extra block event delay in between to allow for these pistons to move properly. And so we're going to extend those instantly using update from these pistons right here. And then those are going to retract instantly as quickly as possible. And then this is going to retract as quickly as possible as well. This is just a 3-tick pulse being put into this line right here. For some reason this comparator has a lot of delay. All right, anyway, so now another important part is that's actually going to be, we're going to be powering that 0-tick slider manually. And then another thing is we're going to be using this slider right here to give a 0-tick pulse, or to give 2 of them. We're going to be powering this block and then moving it, and that's so we actually get a 0-tick pulse that only powers this row of pistons and doesn't bud anything below, which is important because then it will not bud this 0-tick slider on this side. And because that would mess stuff up, most likely, probably. And then we can get our second 0-tick right here, and that one's going to be powering this line right here. And you can see this top piston right here is going to actually be retracting at the perfect time, even though it's being 1-ticked. We can do that. But unfortunately, since we're powering this line with observers, then you can see we actually chain this one more time to power this down here. And because of this, we're only going to be able to power this line right here with a 1 game tick long pulse. So you can see this is going to be retracting and going to be done 1 game tick faster than this. And then we're going to be using our second slider pulse right here to get our double pulse down to right here. And at the same time, the block in the wall retracts, and that's how we get that nice, clean, crisp animation. So the bottom, I think, is quite standard. It pretty much works the exact same way as the other one on the 1.75, which is just to we're actually going to get our instant closing. So you can see as soon as these blocks get into place, we're going to be using a higher tile tick priority to push them up as quickly as we can. So now on the opening, the only really interesting thing to note is we're going to have our instant extension. And that is going to be retracted right here with a 1-tick pulse. And this pulse has a lower block event delay than what's going on up here, so this will always be prioritized first. And this actually gets blocked by the top, the first chain pulse right here. You can see it just kind of retracts normally. Then we have to wait 1 extra tick before extending again, rather than on the closing, because we have to synchronize with the top. So that's basically going to be our sequence. And the main thing that allowed this to be possible was definitely this 0-tick slider chain. That was found by Lugia7. Alright, so I already have our layout in place because I don't feel like I really need to explain it all that much, because you kind of already know what's going on. I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you do kind of know what's going on. But the layout here is just the observer sliders, just the usual thing. Got the quad on top, the storage on bottom. You know the deal. Pretty standard. So one thing I didn't really explain in the explanation over there was how these observer sliders worked. So basically what we're going to be doing is this is going to be pushing over on the closing, and at 2 game ticks we're going to be giving this a 1-tick pulse, and that's going to be powering these pistons at the exact moment that they get updated from above by these. So basically it's going to be like this, and then these will get updated by these ones extending instantaneously, and then while they're extending, the observer pulse will be gone. And so when these are fully extended, they're going to check again for if they're powered or not, and they're going to retract because they realize that they aren't. So then we can just basically give a 3-tick pulse to this line right here to have that full extension happen, which is really useful. let's quickly set up our observer slider system. I have one input right there, one input down here. I have our updater piston on this side because these are going to be extended, and this one actually retracts, I think, one game tick later than the one on this side, and that causes some problems with block event delay, so we have to make sure that this goes first. Something. I can't fully explain this. I don't know exactly why it works, but it has to be on this side or else you get an unsynchronized animation, and it's garbage. So, I don't know. That's the one thing I can't really fully explain, so that's rather unfortunate. It works, though. So anyway, going to be a zero tick slider right here, connecting to that input right there. 1, 2. Zero tick slider right there. Going to be powering that line. I'm going to have another zero tick slider right here. This one's going to be a solid block because we're going to be powering this via an observer and then moving this, and that's how we're going to be getting our first zero tick pulse. We're going to, of course, have our updater pistons right here and here as well. This one facing differently because we need this space for something else, and it doesn't really matter. Arbitrary thing. So that's going to be our zero tick slider setup. So the first thing we're going to be doing is taking care of our observer pushers extension. The observer pushers retraction is going to be done by something else for each one of them. Each one of them we're going to have separate retractions that we leech off of different things. But the extensions have to be pretty much in the same game tick. So the first thing we're going to be doing is pushing this over. So it's very important that we do it like this. Yeah, all this right here is just for the middle one. So you can see right here what we're going to be doing is making sure that this doesn't extend the closing, because we're going to be abusing tile tick priorities. This note block and this observer will always prioritize the powering of this piston versus the piston and observer of this one. So when I flick this lever, you can see that this piston will always fire first, and then this pulse will get blocked to this piston. So when I open it, we're going to get a 1 tick pulse to here at the perfect time to push down the observer. Let's push that back over. We're going to leech this pulse over to here. And that's going to be powering that observer pusher right there at the same tick. And this one right here, we're going to leech off of this line right here from the instant extension. So right there, and that's going to be powering at 1 tick as well. So all 3 of these are going to be in sync. So it's going to be like this, closing. You can see if I replace these, they're going to be in sync. Well, I didn't actually make the instant extension yet, so it's kind of useless to show that off, but yeah, that's basically it for the observer slider extension. Now for the instant extension, we're going to be taking a 1 tick pulse to this right there. And that's simply done by having this sort of system right here. I'm assuming if you're here, you know how this works. But in case you don't, this block just gets retracted instantaneously on the opening, and then this repeater stays on for 1 tick. And it doesn't matter that this has the input bug. It doesn't matter that this has the input bug either, because the result is the same whether we send a 1 game tick or 2 game tick pulse to this right here, because it'll always be normalized by this 0 tick happening at exactly 3 ticks. So that doesn't really matter. But this part does matter, that it's input bugged. You cannot have, actually I think you can have them input bugged, but it's especially important that this part right here is not input bugged, because we're going to be using this line right here to power many other things along the bottom as well. So that's why this piston is right here. And for any of you who don't know what the input bug is, it's that if you have like a lever that's powering a piston, like right here, versus a lever that's powering a note block and an observer, or a repeater in this case as well, the repeater off the lever is going to power 1 game tick sooner than if you powered it versus like a repeater input, which causes some big problems if you're trying to like avoid things. So that's why this side of the wiring is going to be like a lot of pistons and stuff, and this side is mainly just observer spam. It just kind of works out like that, because this canceling out the lever is just very annoying. One of the most annoying bugs in the game. So now what we're going to be doing, so you can see if we, let me just make this input right here. I'll make the closing pulse, so it's just easier to follow. This is going to be a hopper for later. Actually, never mind, let's not make that a hopper for later. I'm going to have this here. This become a dust to a block right there. So that's going to be the closing pulse for the top. It just happens to happen at the right time to sync with the bottom. So now I'm just going to delete this layer because it's easier to see. See, we got our closing right there. You can see we have our instant extension right there. And you can see the observer pusher right here. This is the only one we're really going to be using. So just judge everything off of this one. The other three are almost exactly the same. This one did not power because we never updated it with this. And with this right here, we need to have it powered for 3 ticks, or starting, we have to have it powered at either like 4, 5, or 6 game ticks, and then depower at 12. And it's not really important because if these are already retracting and we power them, it really does nothing. And so that's why this system right here I'm about to build actually works. This is going to be a composter because we need extra signal strength to make it through the entire line right here. So let's just grab this right here, right there. We're going to have a comparator right here, 1.16 abuse. And this dust right here is going to act as an updater for this piston, and that's actually going to retract this observer pusher right there at the right time, and that doesn't cause any problems at all. So that will give us our extension at the right time. But then what we're going to be doing is powering this piston again at 5 ticks, so this comparator will take 1 more tick to retract, which is going to be a total of 6 ticks, or 12 game ticks. So we're going to be using, of course, a piston to avoid the input bug right here. And we're going to have this go down into a block right there. And that's going to be exactly there. And then we're going to be powering this slider right here at 12 game ticks as well, because then we can also have this. And that'll also be taking care of 0 ticking these pistons at this level. And we can test this now, but it'll be slow because of we're not using the slider over here yet, so the pistons at this level will not, at this level right here, will not get an update properly, so it'll be slow. We can see it happen though nonetheless, so let's just do this. And you can see we don't really have this in place right here. We're going to have an observer right there, and that's going to make sure that this thing extends on the, this block is going to be out here after it's done opening, so that 1 tick pulse doesn't get through before the piston extends. We can see this happening right now. Right there. Only this one extended because we're only powering this middle line, but you can see that's exactly what's going on. So, yes, this piston does take like 3 game ticks to retract, and the comparator takes another 2, so we're powering this line effectively at 5 game ticks, but that doesn't matter because the pistons, of course, as I said, will be retracting. So now what we're going to be doing is powering this slider right here, and that's going to be doing the entire retraction from here all the way up to here at this level, because we're going to be chaining this slider as well. So you can see this happening right here. Well, actually, I'm going to be building it first. Also, noted that this is going to be locked on the closing, so we won't get that pulse running through here to mess things up. So I'm going to be going down here. And we're going to be having a T flip-flop to make sure that this only powers on the opening right here. We're going to have this little dumb thing right here, which looks like it'll clock itself, but in reality, if you give this a 1 tick pulse, you can kind of see that an interesting thing will happen. That happens. You can see that this powers on the 2nd pulse of this double pulse, which means that it actually powers 3 ticks after this line, which is the optimal delay that we need in such a tiny space, which I think is really cool. That one was really funny to find. So we're going to be abusing leaves right here because of their half game tick delay properties, because of course we still need half game tick delays. This is just 3 ticks. We still need like 5 game ticks of delay before we power this. So what we're going to be using is leaves, oak leaves. Oak leaves look better. So I'm just having 1 leaf block right there, and this right here is also going to be going down, and that's what's going to be retracting this observer pusher, although it is 1 tick late. It's 1 game tick late, so it's not really a huge problem because, of course, we have our block event delay thing right here. So it doesn't power the piston at this level like it used to, super late. And that made the animation look like garbage, but that doesn't happen anymore. So you can see that one thing that I noticed is that the 2 pulses to this line have to be done exactly, what's the number? 10 game ticks apart. So what we're going to be doing is taking 1 game tick, 2 game ticks from these leaves, then each observer adds 2 more game ticks for a total of 10 before this pushes back down. So that's actually going to be doing both of our pulses to the this slider right here. And so all that's left is, of course, retracting this observer pusher and the double pulse to this line right here, which we can simply take from right there. So now, if we give this a test, we can see the entire thing is going to be done, which is kind of wacky that that we're able to get it in this size. But anyway, so now for the retraction, the first thing we're going to be doing is taking this out, because when this thing retracts, we're going to use this to power a hopper. We're going to be powering this. This is a bit of a roundabout way to do it, but it's really the only way in the space that we have. Powering it like this. And that's why that derp of the piston is there, is because we have that observer running into the stack, but that's not a huge problem because it happens before anything of this happens. So we're also going to be getting the last pulses, pushing this over and powering this back over here using, sorry for the tight space here, but it has to be like that. You just reset this so it's easier. Having an observer facing that way. Actually, no, let's place a leaf here first. And this leaf, of course, is responsible for the half game tick delay, and that's why it's synchronized. So that cool leaf thing right there. So now, that's going to be disabled by the bottom. You can see we have a redstone block there right now. You can see that is the entire top done. And explained, hopefully. I doubt anyone actually understood that. Alright, we're about halfway to achieving a PhD in Minecraft redstone, so let's keep going. So what we're going to be doing is timing this pulse right here to this line. This is going to be the bottom circuit. So we're going to have our input directly going into this line, and that poses a couple of problems, but it's really the only way to get it there, because we pretty much have no time at all. We have to power this line 1 tick later, because of the timing of the instant extension. We're going to be powering these at 3 ticks, and we're going to be depowering them at exactly 3 ticks because of the 1 tick pulse. We're going to be depowering at 3 ticks, and that's exactly going to be exactly before the top does its final push down, which you saw in the demonstration over here. This input is going to be pretty standard. Here. Same thing as before, except this one just can't be solid because if we bud this piston at the wrong time, it'll disable the 0 tick slider, which sucks, and that breaks the top, so we can't have that happen. So what we're going to be doing to actually get the 3 pulses to this line is something fancy like this. Just have a slider right here. Actually, let me build the input here first. Have our observer here. Oops. There we go. That's the inputs for those. Having a slider right here, that's going to be powering this note block. It's not going to be a hopper because, again, I hate hoppers, and it doesn't actually matter because this powers at literally the exact same tick from the slider and from the actual input itself. Doesn't matter, we power that again with another note block. So that's going to be happening again in 4 ticks. You can see we're going to have 2 ticks from this, 3, 4. And then we're just going to chain more observers and power that again in 4 more ticks. That does the 3 pulses, and it also gets reset when the double extender goes. So we're going to be doing the storage right here with an observer facing this way. Yeah, I just started a clock with that. That's pretty funny. Rail, and not a hopper because I'm not dumb. Pretty standard bottom layout here. You've already seen the 1.75 tutorial, I assume. So basically, I guess I could explain it anyways. So what's happening is we're going to be powering these 2 ticks later, and the reason, and you can see these are movable, so they'll never push out. But the reason why it also works for this is because of the fact that we have, of course, if we're going to be, the block here will still be moving back. It'll be 1 game tick from being done when this thing powers, so it won't update when it's retracting its final block. I don't know, that was just kind of a abridged explanation. Anyway, so we're going to be powering these right here at the right time, like this, on this side. And then for this side, we're going to be using a different slider. This one is a new slider that I came up with. That's actually pretty useful. This is going to be observer for later. And right about there. And we can just reset that one later. We have a ton of room over on that side. So we have to, what's next? So that's the entire storage, I think. Yeah, it is the entire storage. The sides, yes, the sides. All right, so it was found that the sides had to retract at a certain timing, and this timing can be achieved 2 ticks after these side pistons fire. So this one can be done simply doing something like this. Into a rail, up, block, dust. That takes care of the 2 bottom pistons. And this one is going to have piston right there, and then a dust on there. That takes care of the 3 top ones. This side is very dense, which is kind of epic. And then on this side, it's pretty simple. Just going to have literally just a line of redstone. So that's those sides done, and they're going to be powering at the perfect time to make sure that the observer pushers on this side work properly and don't spam. So now what we need to do is the double piston extender for the bottom. And this is particularly challenging. Oh, and we also do the redstone blocker, but that's pretty simple. You literally just take an output from that observer. And that's going to be stopping the redstone block from extending on the closing. So you saw that issue that was happening before. So now the double extender. We have to make sure that it extends 1 tick faster on the closing rather than the opening. So what we're going to be doing is abusing this thing right here. That's going to give a pulse to this dust 2 ticks after it's being powered when it extends, and 3 ticks after it's being powered when it retracts, because we're going to be moving the observer instantly, and it takes 2 ticks. And if you're going to retract it, the piston takes 1 tick to extend and then 2 ticks to retract it, and that's why it gives 3. So the closing is pretty simple. We just have to give this a really high tile tick priority because we have to wait for these to be done. So we have to have a higher tile tick priority than observer, which we can get by simply having a piston right here. And that'll be done. So that'll be actually done the entire closing. Very important thing that I forgot about this chain right here. Don't forget about that chain. Kind of easy to overlook. The purpose for it is quite simple. It's just so that the sequence works out, because you kind of have to activate these to do storage, you know. We still need to give it an update at a later block event delay, so that's why we need to place a piston right there. Otherwise it'll fail. With that piston there, it'll properly close. Like that. You can see on the opening, when we go ahead and try this, let me just reset this slider because I'm too lazy to do that properly. You can see we have a rather large problem there. Of course, it's not that, but you can see our double extender is not quite working as well as it should, and that is because the tile tick priority for it is simply too high, and it's actually allowing this pulse right here to come in before the pulse in the bottom. And the reason why it only happens in the middle one is because this dust is directly powering this piston rather than a bud that's going to be powering the rest of those. So it's fine on the outer 2, but on this middle layer, that extra tile tick priority nonsense is actually going to be too much. So what we actually have to end up doing is taking a pulse from over here. This is a rather dumb solution I came up with, but it works, so I don't care. And simply just add an extra pulse into here. And that doesn't mess anything up on the closing, because we can give this a 2-tick pulse on the closing and literally nothing changes. And of course, that pulse has a lower tile tick priority, so it's processed first. And that means this bottom piston is going to extend always before this one. So that makes that work, and all that's left to do is just to reset this slider, which we can do by spamming a bunch of observers. So there, that's it done. Forget to reset. All right, now we can give this thing a test. I obviously did not forget to reset that slider on my own. I would never do something like that. You can see now, the whole door is working in working order, which is amazing, thankfully. So that is the explanation. Hopefully you can understand this thing. Maybe, possibly, I don't know. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have a 5x5 piston door for you. We can just close it. If I open it, you can see that the opening is super fast and has a super clean animation. This 5x5 is actually 0.2 seconds faster than the last one I showed you. This one opens in 1.55 seconds and closes in 1.4, making it the fastest 540 block 5x5 there is. This 5x5 is also really small at only 540 blocks. So let's just show you how to build this. The building area you'll need is actually 4x9, and the materials are in this chest. You can take a screenshot of that.